Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is me, Idris Kamisa, your genial host, and the program is Say It Like It Is. And the purpose of this program is to interview people of influence, people that have made a difference. People have much to offer, and we need to engage them, we need to learn from them, perhaps extract from them some nuggets of wisdom. The first two programs, alhamdulillah, went off very well. And I'm especially excited about today's guest. He's a very dear friend of mine, a brother who I've known for a long, long time. And I've learned from him, and I continue to learn from him. I have no doubt that you'll enjoy this conversation. It will be very, very enriching. So it's my pleasure to welcome our dear guest, Mr. Ebrahim Ansur. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Firstly, I'm honored, Idris, to be on your show. It's a huge privilege, especially to speak to somebody with this international reputation that you have. MashaAllah. Sidi Idris, MashaAllah. Jazakallah.
No, thanks. Ibrahim, let's start at the very beginning. I mean, when I think about you, right, and may you be better than what I think about you. I regard you as a person that is focused, self-disciplined. When you have a task to do, you want to complete it, and you are unruffled, even when other people under a crisis, I mean, all of this, I know, is a culmination of experiences. To what would you attribute those aspects, especially from your childhood experience?
Yeah, no, Idris, I think I must firstly thank my genes. My father was a very calm, very honest, upright, devout human being. And I think he instilled these values in me. And over and above that, I think the people with whom I have interacted since the time I was a child, I attended Pine Street Madrasa School about a century ago, very long ago.
Okay.
And I think one of the other factors I think that has helped to shape how I think is the influence of my teachers. And I have to mention in particular my primary school teacher, Mr. Mahmoud Dawood. Mr. Mahmoud Dawood taught me when I was in primary school from those days, Standard 3 to Standard 6 at Pine Street Madrasa. He subsequently went on to become a lecturer in Arabic and quite well known in the Durban Muslim community for his work in promoting Arabic. But he taught me a balance, and I think bearing in mind what our generation was like, what our society was like in the 50s, the fact that he had the courage to question the traditions and the norms and taught us, even at that young age, to challenge the existing deeply held beliefs and values in the light of what is embodied in the Quran and the Sunnah. So I think those two influences, my father and a teacher like Mahmoud Dawood and others with whom I have interacted.
I want to stop you there, Ibrahim. I remember your dad, he was very resilient, he had a very engaging personality. So I can imagine your fondness. I know that when you're reflecting on him, tears are welling. It's because of our relationship with them. May Allah grant them the highest status in Jannah. And if so, let us look at it as a discrete item. In terms of today, do you find that young people are enamored with their parents, they want to engage in them, learn from them, sit at their side? Do you find it different, somewhat different, or radically different?
No, I must indicate, Idris, that it's very hard to generalize. Let's start there. It's hard to generalize. There are families and there are families.
Correct, yes.
But I tend to agree with you that the kind of relationship that parents have with their children in these times, and I think you're an expert in this more than I am because you deal with cases on a daily basis. But from my own experience as principal for many, many years, I have found that parents have actually abdicated their responsibility. And I wouldn't even suggest it's an abdication of responsibility. It's a question of helplessness. They have no idea as to what to do. Very often, I've had many parents coming to me and saying, Mr. Ansur, listen, I can't manage. See what you can do with my son or with my daughter. So it's a reflection of our society, Idris. It's a reflection of the kind of, there's a fact that parents have to earn. And I think this longing to ensure that they earn enough to look after their children and to give them a kind of lifestyle which they themselves maybe may not have had. They want to make sure that their children get that kind of lifestyle and they go out of their way, sometimes at huge cost to themselves. And that kind of relationship that you were talking about that we enjoyed with our parents, we had more time, in fact, to sit with them and chat to them and be guided by them. Now, unfortunately, it may be a generalization, but for my experience, I find that this is the norm, that there's a disjunct between the parent and the child.
And one of the things that I say in my programs, in giving our children what we did not have, we forget to give them what we had. So it is somewhat skewed,
Yeah.
We want to give a life of comfort at the expense of some of those lasting values like respect and so on. The other thing that I want to talk about regarding that issue, and we are not here to judge people. They say parenting is a modern day jihad, and may Allah make it easy for them. And some of them tried their very best, but they're out of their depth. The other important thing that I want to speak about is, do you think with the kind of values that our children are being brought up with, how is it impacting at the school level? Because you spoke about Mahmoud Dawood, may Allah bless him, grant him Jannatul Firdaus, and he was an incredible man, a martinet, and a person that was very forthright and focused. Do you think that at school perhaps we are overindulging our children, or do you think that perhaps we need to relook at how we engage them?
Yeah, the fact is, every teacher is a murabbi.
Yeah.
I mean, you know the term, or is expected to be a murabbi. And the sad reality is that is not in fact the case with every single teacher, because many of our teachers have their own issues. They come to school to make sure that they deliver the syllabus, and the whole focus, perhaps we may be responsible even as principals and as parents, that we have such high expectations that our children must excel academically, that the element of the murabbi, of the guide, of the mentor, of somebody who is there to develop the children's all-round education, unfortunately, many of our teachers don't have the time for that, or they don't have the capacity to do that, because they're so caught up in delivering the curriculum. So the relationships, I think, are very important. Having said that, I think some of our teachers are doing an excellent job. The fact of the matter is that people go out of their way, and from your experience you would have known this, that children come to certain teachers when they have problems. They find it easier to relate to teachers. Sometimes even they would not confide in their parents, but they would come to the teacher and say, what can I do? I know even the alims that we have this kind of relationship with their children. Long gone are the days when I was at madrasa where you were concerned about forgetting your sabak because you know what would happen to you. Nowadays, fortunately, our ulama that are teaching in our Muslim schools have created this kind of rapport with their children where they can relate to the children and guide them. And I know many of them who have a WhatsApp line, and the WhatsApp lines are used very often by the children. So I think the role of the teacher as a murabbi, as a guide, is something that we need to emphasize and work very hard at trying to integrate into our system. Because the fact is that our children, our society has so many issues. And if the teacher cannot be there to assist the whole child, rather than worry about mathematics or English, then the responsibility of the teacher, unfortunately, is not being fulfilled.
I mean, let's explore this a little more, right? And, Alhamdulillah, you've been in the profession for a very, very long time. And I want you to think about yourself as a teacher now. I know you were a dynamic teacher of English. You lectured at Springfield College also.
Sure.
And let's look at English, because I think it's a passion that both of us have. That as a teacher of English, for example, the books reflect life and different characters and everything else. And today, our children do not want to read. It's about instant gratification. And I think you did your master's, I think it was on reading, What are some things that you like to share in terms of being a teacher, having an audience there? I say some of us have a captive audience, others have a captured audience.
Yeah, no, Idris, you've touched on English, which is, of course, as you rightly have pointed out, a passion which both of us share. And, of course, we have to be very grateful to our mentor, Brother Ismail Qatrada, for developing that love for us in English. And I've been fortunate in being an English subject advisor, obviously with the Department of Education, for some time. So the question about what I had said earlier about the teacher as a murabbi, as a guide, the teacher of English or languages in particular has the opportunity, like no other teacher, to actually inspire children, to motivate them and to guide them along the right lines. And the text, the literary texts that are taught in schools, the set works, etc., in my days, obviously, we had to do things like Vanity Fair. And I must tell you, it was a nightmare trying to teach Vanity Fair, a tome of about 800 pages, to grade 8 and grade 9 children. It was a very poor reflection on the selection committee that chose that. Fortunately, nowadays, we can select books that are more relevant to our society.
I'll just stop you there for a moment. And Alhamdulillah, this is the first segment. And it's a really delightful conversation. I'm enjoying it. I'm listening with attention and understanding because we, both of us, share similar kind of values in many aspects. So we'll be back immediately after this break. You're listening or viewing rather the program Say It Like It Is. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Idris Kamisa and your program Say It Like It Is. And I also want to implore you, the viewer, if you know of someone, maybe yourself, if you feel you have something to offer, please contact me. I'll be very happy to interview you. Because in the end, our life must not be in vain, inshallah, that we all need to leave a legacy. Nothing is more beautiful than for someone to say, my gosh, that man there, I like him, and I learned so much from him, alhamdulillah. And it's not about us massaging our egos, it's about sharing things. When you are at our age now, you want to, ego is non-existent. You are concerned about your akhirah and you want to share words of wisdom. So coming back to you spoke about reading the books and whatnot,
English,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, basically, as I said, Idris, teacher of English has an opportunity to explore texts and to teach children, because very often when literary texts are chosen, they have universal values and values that have transcended time and are relevant to societies across the world. So when learners engage with these texts and they begin to learn lessons which the astute teacher is able to guide them along, it's a lesson in life. If you take David Copperfield and Mr. Micawber and, the fact that the issue about not spending more than you earn.
Your budget.
These are relevant life skills, and similarly, the grandeur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God's grandeur in the poem, so as one explores literature, the opportunities of guiding children towards the correct value system, and also illustrating to them what happens to those who took the wrong path. What was their end? You know, all the tragedies, you know, all the Shakespearean tragedies work on that basis of the tragic flaw in the hero. And what led to his downfall was pride or vanity or greed, you know, and so these are lessons that we can teach. So to just summarize, definitely any teacher of languages who has the opportunity of exploring text, not only should they actually inspire their children to read for the sake of reading and for exploring their own universe and increase their vocabulary and become better communicators, but they also learn valuable life lessons.
You know, the one of the points that I came across a video clip where the person was saying that today with technology, and they're making a comparison, there haven't been really empirical studies about what they can glean from Kindle, for example, as opposed to a hard book. We turn the pages. And I know a place like Sweden, I think it is, they have thrown out all the technology because they realize that the slow learning, inverted commas, is better than the fast-paced learning because they do not internalize and internalize those values, you know. So now, like I know, for example, teaching of English lends itself to many, many things. But what disturbs me, though, you know, whilst we understand we are not here to be armchair critiques of teachers, even teachers have forfeited the habit of reading, you know.
Yeah, no, this is a very sad reality, Idris. Partly because of the obsession with social media. I mean, it's so obsessive, it's actually a disease, you know, and I count myself among those who are also caught up in the social media. You look at your cell phone, and if you analyze the amount of time you spend on the cell phone, you realize that, you know, you spend up to 4 or 5 hours a day. Interestingly, you know, when I was at school, I used to interview the matrics, especially, to help them in terms of time management.
Right, yeah.
And on average, the first question I would ask of them is, how much time do you actually spend on your phone? The average was between 4 and 5 hours
Can you
a
believe
day.
that?
You know, it may be more, but that was the average that a matric child spends on his cell phone. Where does he have the time to read? Which is why the role of the teacher is so important. And nowadays, I remember in the Department of Education, we used to have uninterrupted, sustained, silent reading programs where the entire school dropped everything for the 15 minutes and everybody read. And that was an attempt to inculcate the habit of reading in children. And I think this is something that we need to do more often, because with reading, you can gain so much. And in particular, you know, the ability to distinguish between what is reality and what is fiction. You know, nowadays, the media, you know, this is a sad reality. Those who are in the old days, it was said that, you know, history is written from the perspective of the victors. Nowadays, the reality in life, which is fiction, is being presented by those who have the power to do so. And you don't know what is true and what isn't. You know, so, and especially those who are unwitting, unable to see that they are being duped. You know, they just accept at face value whatever is presented to them. So reading is so important.
Yeah, because I mean, part of reading, and this is very important, the point that you alluded to, is a critical evaluation, to look at the world with critical eyes.
That's right.
Because many of us are like passive receptacles. We read something, we assume everything there is fact. The idea of distinguishing what's factual and what is completely untrue. The other point, Ebrahim, that I want to speak about is the fact that, you know, being a principal of your schools and your also experience with the national landscape in South Africa, your involvement with an organization like NISA, as your involvement I'm sure it enriched the others. Was it enriching for you because you had the opportunity of visiting many schools,
Yeah, there are two issues here. I mean, two separate organizations. NAISA is the National Alliance of Independent Schools Associations, and I have been chairman of NAISA in 2014, 2015, and then subsequently I have been serving as the Secretary General. For me, it was an excellent opportunity to serve the independent school sector because we face huge challenges. Bearing in mind that NAISA comprises at least 6 faith-based organizations. And I read somewhere I think yesterday or so, that there is a move to regulate religion in our country. And as NAISA, as the National Alliance, we have obviously taken a stand against any interference in the customs and religious practices and languages that parents can decide what their children should learn. So NAISA in itself has been for me a very rewarding experience because I have the opportunity now to interact with different associations, different ways of thinking, including our Jewish community who are part of the alliance. And we focus on what we need to do. In other words, those things that affect our schools. Then the other body I was involved in was IQA, which was the Independent Quality Assurance Agency. And for me, that was a very enriching experience as well, professionally, because I had the opportunity of being mentor, I would say, to about 50 or 60 different schools in the last 7 or 8 years since I joined IQA. Sadly, IQA had to close 2 years ago. But I had the opportunity of seeing how the other half live in terms of your elite schools in KZN, which I had the opportunity of evaluating. But it also allowed me the opportunity of learning best practice and sharing it. I know one of our schools actually called me in one day, a couple of years ago, to share with their staff, what is it that you found as best practice in all these top schools? Obviously, they have a huge advantage in the resources that they have. And the fact that they can spend inordinate amounts of money on attracting the best quality teachers, which the average independent school can't do. But having visited those schools and being familiar with our own setup, I would put my head on the block and say that our teachers can compare with the best I have seen. Some of our teachers really are unheralded heroes, and they do an excellent job. But coming back to your point, that was a fantastic experience for me in terms of exposure to the more elite schools, as well as schools that are struggling, and it helped me develop as a professional.
You see, as you were speaking, another point struck me. The point is that sometimes we are very provincial in our attitude, and we do not leave the confines of our schools, go out elsewhere, and we assume that we've got the monopoly of knowledge. The way we are doing things is the only way. And do you not think that principals themselves should be receptive of leaving the environment, engaging with other principals, allowing their teachers to engage with others so they also learn about best practice?
Yeah, in fact, this idea of teacher exchange is something which is entrenched in many systems. And it is something that I would certainly recommend. And your Global Alliance of Independent Schools is in fact engaging in something like this, where they're taking principals to Australia. Alhamdulillah, fortunately, the Islamic school system in Australia is well funded by the state, but we can learn so much from them. I just want to go back to that IQA experience. I think because of my skin color, I must tell you that I was asked to do a couple of evaluations on transformation and diversity.
Right, yeah.
Now, it's a huge issue,
Yeah, it
transformation and
Yeah, it
diversity,
is.
especially in this day and age,
Correct, yes.
where one of our schools in Johannesburg, one of the top private schools, had an issue. There was a huge controversy about what a teacher had to say. And he was labeled as a racist and so on. And then there was an evaluation that ICWA was asked to do of that school's transformation and diversity. And they spent a week, and the findings were shocking. You know, the fact is...
Okay, I have to stop you there.
Yeah.
Right. Alhamdulillah, you may be saying, you're talking about so many things. Of course, this is the nature of the kind of work that he has done. And I'm sure much of what he's saying is resonating with you. Perhaps you're also reflecting on it. So this is your program, Say It Like It Is. We'll be back immediately after this break. We are talking to our guest, Ebrahim Ansur, and Alhamdulillah, it's always good to listen to him, to engage with him, and learn from him. So you are talking about this diversity and transformation.
Yeah, this, as you know, I mean, we haven't really got over our apartheid past. And many of all these well-established schools have been grappling now that the demographics in their schools has changed, where you have now between 40 and 50% of learners from disadvantaged backgrounds in these schools. So obviously there have been issues of adjustment and perceived discrimination. So ICWA had decided to have a separate evaluation program called Transformation and Diversity. And I, in fact, did a paper with my ICWA mentors on transformation and diversity. And I must say it was an eye-opener for them as well. Because even we, and the point I wanted to make is that the Muslim community itself has to look, and our schools have to look at transformation and diversity in their own schools.
Correct, yes.
You know, you take for granted that every child in your school is happy or is content until you start digging. And so I've done about 4 of these transformation and diversity evaluations at some of the, you know, I won't name them obviously. But what was interesting is that the alumni of these schools who had left, they were also obviously had participated in an opinion survey. And then they reflected in hindsight on their own experiences when they were at school and the discrimination they faced and how, because of the system, they just had to grin and bear it. But now that the opportunity has arisen for them to make an contribution, all those stories, the skeletons in the cupboard all started coming out. And now these schools are engaged in a sincere effort to transform. I think we ourselves as a community also have to look very seriously at what kind of transformation and diversity policy do we have in our own schools. Because, I mean, we, like it or not, you know, we have to say it like it is.
Correct, yes.
We come from a background of the Indian subcontinent.
Correct.
Where caste and language ruled.
Yeah.
And for many, many years, up to now, we still have the issue of amongst ourselves, this discrimination on the basis of caste or language. Leave alone how we interact with the indigenous people of our country. So I think it's important for our schools to also have some kind of transformation, a real Islamic transformation and diversity policy, where we're not paying lip service and we're not just doing the iftar programs, you know, which we like to do in Ramadan to say that, okay, we are doing an outreach program, but genuine transformation, having a policy in schools, which if our children embrace this, then the future generations have something that they can build on.
You know, it's very interesting that you are speaking about this, and I also feel very, very strongly. You know, sometimes I wonder how relevant are our schools in terms of the experiential world of children. I mean, there are some people who are critical of private independent schools, they say we are insular and isolationists and whatnot, you know. And I think as teachers, as principals, as board members, we need to look at that. That's on the broad level, but also on the personal level of students. Sometimes we are just looking at the cognitive development and we're forgetting who the child is, what is his background, what are his impediments, what are his attitudes. We do not even know that. We are only concerned about, almost spewing, as it were, something so that he can regurgitate in the examination,
Yeah. Yeah, Idris, I think, this is something that we speak about, that middle group. Generally, we focus on the very bright and those who are lagging in the bottom. The middle group is very often forgotten. But coming back to your point about the child and getting into the psyche of the child and wanting to know about his needs and addressing the needs, again, it links to what I said earlier, the teacher as the guide, as a murabbi, who is able to identify, but also to develop that kind of relationship with the child, where the child has a confidence in relating. We moved away from the first point I was making, and that was about transformation and diversity, which is something which I think, our schools have to really, so our society as a whole, but it starts off at school, because the school is a microcosm of society. And if we can educate our children about the true Islamic values, where there's no discrimination whatsoever on any grounds. The Prophet's last sermon, alhamdulillah, speaks about this. And we have it displayed on our school walls. But in terms of actual practice, perhaps the way I see it, maybe 10 generations from now, but we're going to make a start.
Correct, yes.
To make sure that that kind of attitude is in our children.
But see, what you are saying requires a robust leadership. It's about a head teacher or the school board members, whatever, ask themselves, what are our values here? What kind of attitudes and values we want our children when they leave from here? Like I often ask when I'm at other schools, write down 10 attributes you like to see on this learner here. And they'll give you with ease. Then you ask them, do you have programs that will help them to unleash those values? They say no. So it's like incidental, as it were. Do you think that perhaps the argument many people use, and you were a head teacher yourself, that where's the time? Where's the time? That we all of us seem to be to a point of obsession when it comes to the metric results,
Idris, you will still remember, I think, in our days, the House of Delegates days, that when we asked teachers to develop lesson plans, we had a system, there was a section for values.
Correct.
So if every teacher of whatever subject focuses on part of his lesson on values and makes a deliberate attempt to say, listen, what kind of values can I teach? And it may be something that the school as a whole can develop. That, listen, we're going to focus on these 5 or 6 values, and every teacher across the curriculum must be involved in some way or the other in reinforcing these 5 or 6 values. And it'll make a huge difference. So I agree entirely that we should focus on the teacher and the holistic child, not teacher and only subject and curriculum.
Because one of the things that I often find, and not that we were paragons of excellence or whatever, is the fact that teachers go with the textbook, they want to complete the syllabus, and they will not see the telltale signs of a young boy or a young girl that is in pain. But if you are sensitive, you have emotional intelligence, you can make out something seems amiss, And then students, some of them, as you said earlier on, who are comfortable, teachers will open up their hearts and say, I'm going through this challenge with my father, my mother, and they know it will be done confidentially, and the teacher will give his wisdom,
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about that child who took his life in Cape Town.
Mitchell's Plain, yeah.
Somebody ought to have picked us up, surely. I mean, it's cruel that a child should take his life because of bullying at school. And if that's one child, there may be so many others like that who may be on the brink. And it is so important for teachers to be taught how to identify that.
I mean, the thing is, you say one child, but how many people's lives have been affected?
Yeah.
Those friends, those teachers, his family, the neighborhood, all of them are affected. And perhaps, without trying to be overly critical of that particular school, is to ask ourselves, were there signs?
Yeah.
Did he come to the office one day and say, you know what, I'm not happy in the class, they bully me. And what was your response, So Babu, Ibrahim, there are many things that happen. We are living today in a society that has really become part of a global village, And there was a time, when we grew up, it was you, your family, or your friends. No other distractions, no TV, nothing, no social media. So it is difficult. It is difficult to be young, And what do you say to a young person? And before you give me a response, because we are nearing the end, we'll have to do it and think about it. What advice would you give to the young? And I'm going to ask you the harder questions in the last segment. Assalamu alaikum. This is Idris Kamisa in the program Say It Like It Is. We're having such a good time, and I cannot believe we are going to be in the last segment immediately after this break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, say it like it is. Yes, Ebrahim, you were speaking about, I asked you this question, that there is a tendency. I often ask this question. Many people say the youth are rudderless. Who do you blame? They say blame the youth. And when you speak to the youth, you listen to them, they blame the adults, and it goes on. And the thing is, how do we find a solution so that the gap between the adult world and the world of the youth, there's some kind of transition, there's, a more deeper understanding,
Yeah, Idris, I wish I had the kind of background and experience that you have had to answer that question. But at a simple level, the school, the parents, and the children are all in one, that triangle. I think there has to be a conscious effort on the part of the school to engage parents. Because without the help of the parents, whatever is being done at school remains at the school entrance and is forgotten there. But if there is a coordinated program of involving, identify what the specific issues are in the first place. For example, if you want to prevent the kind of issues that we spoke about, suicide and so on, we've got to engage parents to themselves identify, are there issues that my child is having? Who can I address this with at school? So I think it's important to have a strong parent-teacher relationship. And also, we mustn't forget that the children themselves, many schools have what they call a learner representative council. And I think we must also capture that kind of element that we have in our schools, get children themselves involved. If they can identify which of their friends is showing some kind of withdrawal, surely then that person must actually approach a teacher. Unfortunately, of course, in the state system, previously we used to have guidance counselors, and now that has been done away with. But every teacher should be a guidance counselor. So the answer to the question is that we must identify that there is a need for the school, for the parents, and the children to work together and have some kind of system. In this equa mode that I used to be in, questionnaires, opinion surveys were the heart of the evaluation. So every child had an opportunity in that opinion survey to answer questions. Even a grade 2 or grade 3 child would use smiley faces
correct,
to indicate I am happy in the school. I find myself, perhaps, I find this as an issue at the school. So reaching out to the children, getting facts from which we can work, I think that's important. And that's a starting point of developing some kind of system which will prevent the issues that
I think it makes a lot of sense what you are saying. In the end, it's about engagement.
Yeah.
And it's not about remote control, parenting, active engagement. And I know, before we go on to the latter part of this segment, your involvement, alhamdulillah, with the Association of Muslim Schools. And I know we had a meeting the other day, and the executive is concerned that you said you're going to retire now. And we believe you have so much more to offer. Now, in terms of your involvement with the Association of Muslim Schools, we find there is a comparison made. I mean, you're involved with schools of other faiths. In terms of the quality that we offer and your involvement with Association of Muslim School, how has that enlightened you in terms of the performance of our schools in the main,
No, alhamdulillah, listen, I think the Association of Muslim Schools has done remarkable work in the last 20 to 30 years of its existence. And of course, you're one of the founder members of AMS. And I have been involved with AMS for many, many years. Currently, I serve as the regional director for AMS KZN and as treasurer of AMS National. The difference is that we are a volunteer organization. All the work that we do is based on volunteerism. And it's very difficult for a principal to run a school and to offer his time to the activities of an association. The difference between AMS and other organizations, other associations of schools, that most of these associations are professional. They have a full-time office and secretaries and directors, etc. But despite that, I think we're getting there. We've had a very interesting strategic planning session, and I hope that we can implement it, inshallah.
Right. Now, I want to look at broadly our society. There are perceptions, some of them will state quite categorically, they're concerned about our Muslim community. We are very, very fragmented. There isn't much leadership, lot of infighting, lot of keyboard warriors, and so on and so forth. And it is also having a cascading effect on young people growing up in this faith. Some of them are becoming disenchanted. In your own experience, because I know you interact and interface with lots of people, what would you say are a few of your abiding concerns of our community?
No, there's absolutely no doubt that we are a disunited ummah in South Africa. In as much as we are an ummah, one body, the fact that we have so many different organizations that claim to represent our Muslims, I'm not going to name names, but I mean, we have a minimum of 10 or 15 perhaps. And who is our leader? If we had to ask who is the leader of the Muslims in South Africa, it'd be very hard to answer that question. Because if you appoint one leader, somebody else will say, no, that's somebody that I can consider to be my leader. So there has to be some effort. Maybe it will take some kind of divine intervention, but we have to work towards getting all the different parties together to make sure that we speak with one voice and represent the Muslim community. We constantly talk about the Jews, the South African Jewish Board, etc. And there's no doubt that they have some kind of formula where one person is their spokesperson, but we have far too many leaders, that's to start off with, and it's something that we need to work at. I'm talking about 50 odd years ago, we didn't have so many splinter groups as we have now. We had one ulama body, the Jamiat al-Ulama, and that was it. Now we have so many different organizations, so many different bodies. So the young Muslim, depending on how he looks at life, is confused. Who does he look up to as a leader? I think that's something that our community has to grapple with.
You see, that point is also a point that worries me. You may stand up and say this. Someone watching this program, he says, yeah, easy for him to talk. You know, we have that kind of notion. We have this knee-jerk reaction, and then we want to be anonymous and all of that. So that's really, inshallah, at least I say, I have no issue if you disagree with my opinion, but don't be disagreeable. Talk to me, you know. And therefore, for example, I really miss a person like Maulana Yunus Patel, you know.
Undoubtedly.
You know, he's, I mean, we used to engage with him so often. And he was also very concerned about the disunity. And he would advise you and in a loving, caring way, you know, alhamdulillah. And really, it is my fervent hope and prayer that we understand that no one has the monopoly of the truth, you see. And once you think you got it, then you can be very condescending and patronizing.
You know, Idris, I want to go back to the time I was in primary school at Mr. Mahmood Dawood and the kind of values and the balance that he taught us. So I'm of the view that our Muslim schools can do far more. If they educate our children correctly and teach them to be firstly knowledgeable but also critical, inshallah, maybe not in our generation, but in generations to come, when our children have a true understanding of what Islam is all about and are able to see it through the prism of one unity, inshallah, we'll get somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, but that's a major concern that I have.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you still remember, you know, Mahmood Dawood, it shows the impact he has, you know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, yeah.
Like I remember there was one student in South Africa, a person of another faith, and she had the highest in metric. And so she was interviewed. And so they asked her, to whom do you attribute your success? And you would have thought maybe a family or school. She says, no. She says, my grade art teacher.
Okay.
Grade art. I mean, the reporter was shocked, you know. He says, grade art? He says, yes. He says, because she affirmed me, she validated me, she enhanced my self-esteem, and she gave me self-belief at that age. So I think sometimes we forget, and teachers, sometimes we forget the power we have. Therefore, alhamdulillah, I had a very, very engaging conversation, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. On behalf of the viewers, Ebrahim, I want to wish you well in everything that you do, and there's so much you can teach us, so much we can learn from you. So alhamdulillah, the next time round, when you meet with Mr. Ansur, tell him, I like it. So therefore, my beloved brothers and sisters, I hope you have enjoyed the program as I did. And this is your program, Say It Like It Is.